Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fun and Games Podcast. I'm Jen Moonen.
And I'm at AK Stormageddon.
And you're listening to episode 212. And at this episode, we're here for big games. Hard to count games. We're here to give you something crazy, wild, never seen before, emerging from the inky black void with nothing but day-glow green emerging from it. Because we're doing a console retrospective on the original Xbox. Not Xbox One, the original Xbox. We are going to be making jokes about how hard it is to count and look that up throughout. And if you're not, I am. But to join us in that retrospective from the Tier List podcast, Adam Gumbert, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, hello. How's everyone out there? Hello, vaccine stuff.
Right, exactly.
I was immediately in my brain. Yes, hello. How's everyone doing? Thanks for having me on. Funny enough, I know we're going to get into it. This episode has been talked about, I think, for 2 years.
Yes, just about.
Yeah, I think so.
About me coming on it specifically.
Yes.
So long that I forgot, and then you reminded me. That's how long it took.
That's teamwork right there.
So while I met you before 2 years ago, I think we really started to get to talking about content creation and stuff 2 years ago, and we mentioned the console retrospectives, and Adam was immediately like, when you do the Xbox, I'm in. And so here you are, and we're excited to have you. Also, thank you for letting us air previously the panel I was on with you at PAX East. Jen was technically at that panel too, stealing questions, but we're not going to talk about that.
No, we're not.
No.
We know what I did.
But what we are going to talk about is the Xbox, the original Xbox, which was released in North America on November 15th, 2001, in Japan, February 22nd of 2002, and in PAL regions, March 14th, 2002. Usually it's the other way around, Japan, then North America, but this was America made. And so the Xbox is sort of an anomaly. And we talked about this a little bit in the PlayStation episode, but like, it was Nintendo and Sega for so long, and then it was Sony. And we're like, all right, now we've got three companies. And then all of a sudden Microsoft is like, yeah, we're making video games now too, but for consoles. We have a console. Here it is. And I kind of really remember being flabbergasted by that.
It does make a little bit of sense, given that there was PC gaming already going on. Microsoft was publishing games on their platform. Sony, as a media company getting into video games, kind of set things in motion just a little bit. So why not come at it from their angle as well?
I love this. We saw it with Sony, and we also see it with Microsoft. When someone wants to enter the space, that first shot at it, I don't even think it's about making money, but it's about making an impact.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you go through the history of the Xbox, like, it was an extremely powerful machine. They lost, I think, like $100+ on every unit they sold. They never made profit on it.
Yeah, I think they lost like $4 billion by the end on just console sales.
Yeah, but it didn't matter. And they were also just like, give us the weirdest, give us something that people will remember. We don't care. We're not going to make money. That doesn't matter. We just need to make an impact and an imprint and establish ourselves, which again, I feel Sony did with the PlayStation 1, where it's like, okay, this whole Nintendo weirdness didn't happen or whatever. Mm-hmm. Let's make our own thing that plays CDs. And I haven't looked at the numbers of, what Sony did specifically, but it was like, we got to establish ourselves. It doesn't matter. Square Enix will make a game for us. Final Fantasy is not going to be on Nintendo. It'll be over here. And Microsoft did the same thing. We're going to lose money. Doesn't matter. Let's get this BioWare company to make a bunch of weird games over here and just like, have a good time.
Yeah, it was attitude and lifestyle kind of being pushed forward. That's certainly what the PS1 did in its own way, and the Xbox continued that in a more, I suppose, Western focus.
So before we get too deep into the breadth and history of the Xbox, let's talk about our personal experience. And I definitely don't know Jen's. It's funny, I feel like in the beginning with our retrospectives, I really knew Jen's like history with consoles, but as we get a little more obtuse, I know less. So Jen, what's your history with the Xbox? Did you own this one when it came out?
Sort of. I say that because there was one in my house, but it was very much my older brother's console. He got it, and then he took it with him to college. So this came out in 2001. I was in high school, but that was the year my brother graduated from high school. So it was very briefly in our home, and it would come home with him when he was on vacation or things like that. But otherwise, it was just the thing that he had. Anything that I played at home was very much multiplayer or by his leave, I suppose. Which is to say, I wasn't necessarily getting games for myself for when Chris got home, I could play it on his Xbox. So for the most part, it was something that I played at friends' houses. there's a lot of ink spilled over how the Xbox was in its way a sequel to the Dreamcast because it picked up a bunch of Dreamcast games that were canceled, things like that. There was a bit of Sega and Microsoft negotiating with each other when this whole thing was getting started, etc. A friend of mine who was a huge Dreamcast fan got an Xbox Near 2 immediately. So most of the time when I was playing anything, it was at his place. And so he had like Shenmue 2 and Jet Set Radio Future. There was a little bit of Dead or Alive Volleyball, what
Let's
have
go.
you. I mean, yeah, no, he was that guy. But a lot of it was at friends' places. And then like one of my college roommates had one. He was playing Fable. And so I would get like bits and pieces and experiences within it. And then nowadays I have one hooked up and I've got these games, but it's now kind of a weird mixed in with all the PS2 of it all. A lot of it is defined by exclusives for me or other little key pieces of the experience. But it was always a thing that's there, but was never at the forefront. So I'm really happy we're all talking about it now.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, so this was the second console that I bought with my own money. At the time it came out, I must have been, because I didn't get it on launch day or anything, because I was a preteen, basically. So I think I was like 12, maybe 13, so it probably puts it around 2003 or somewhere in the middle of it. But again, it had been the thing where my friends had it. You would go over there, playing Halo at friend's house was like the number one thing. Like, oh, this video game console is very, very cool.
Yeah.
That sold me. I mean, that was like my first time ever doing LAN parties or any of that because I wasn't, I was a young man, so I was not doing I wasn't going to internet cafes and doing PC LAN parties. My mom would not let me do that. So yeah, I would go to a friend's house. He got it closer to whenever it came out. Shout out to Joe Watts. And we would play LAN Halo and had a good time, and I fell in love with it. Soon after, I got my own money between either birthdays or Christmas or my savings account that my mom forced me to have, and I went out and got my own. It's interesting. I got it for myself as a Christmas present. I think my mom was like, "We're going on vacation soon. If you want to give me some of that money, then we'll figure out getting this Xbox." So when I showed up at Christmas in Florida, on a brisk 65-degree day, everyone was wearing their big snow jackets. I remember that. I opened up my Xbox. I had a copy of Halo 1, and I had a double pack of Sega GT Rally and Jet Set Radio Future.
Nice.
So that was my first day with my own Xbox. But yeah, that was the thing that I was very interested in and shaped me. Because I had an N64 before, but the GameCube was out. I just bought it. My mom was like, "Are you sure? They don't make things for this anymore." And I was like, "Yeah, I want my own money." After that investment, I was like, maybe I should be smarter next time. So Xbox was the next step for me. And also, just really quickly, the reason that I play inverted to this day is because the first time I ever got my hands on a dual stick controller playing Halo was inverted. And now it's funny because we all do like events like PAX and stuff. Whenever I go to events or whenever I play on my own, I will switch it to inverted. I will play my demos or play my games, and I will leave it on inverted when I go. So that is what I do now. That's all thanks to Halo 1.
That's fair. I go between inverted and, non-inverted just for similar reasons for a bunch of stuff. And yeah, no, those LAN parties for Halo were very formative. Again, when my brother would come home with his Xbox, I remember one of the times, like a bunch of us were huge Red versus Blue fans. So even if we weren't into Halo, we were into Halo-like things. So we did manage to do the 2 TVs, 2 Xboxes, 8 of us kind of thing. And that was wild. Growing up with all kinds of different console experiences and being like, what is it like to plug in 2 different consoles on 2 TVs? It's awesome. It's really cool. Decadent as hell. Highly recommend.
And more on Halo in a minute. Obviously, I think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that first game. But my experience, I never owned an Xbox, an OG Xbox. However, it came out when I was in college. And shout out to my friends Brian and Joe. Joe, who was on our Dreamcast episode. Brian had one, and I think Joe did also. And so we spent, this was while I was in college, so I made my own schedule, which means I was in school like 3 days all day long and then was off the rest of the time. No job, a bum. And would often be at Brian's house playing multiplayer Halo constantly. And while I never ended up owning this console, I would go back and play a lot of these games once I got a 360, the only Xbox console I ever owned. But also, I basically lived at Brian's house, so it was basically my console. Like, I would show up while he was playing WoW on his computer, or maybe it was City of Heroes back then. And I'd just jump on his Xbox and be like, all right, you can go raid or whatever. I'm going to play Halo and play the campaign again. And it's funny, I never considered Halo a first-person shooter, and let me explain. Growing up, I played games like Wolfenstein and Doom, and then never really played a ton of shooters. And then I played Halo, which for me was a party game, because I played Halo with Brian and Joe all the time, and we never did anything. We would kill each other for a while, and then we'd get bored, and so we'd see, well, what can we do? And we'd get up to shenanigans. And and I know I've told this story before, but two of the major milestones I remember about Halo, specifically on the Xbox, is at one point we were dueling rocket launchers and got a Scorpion tank to stand straight up because we hit it from both sides, and then we couldn't knock it over. But the thing that I think is my fondest memory about Halo is we often played with only rocket launchers. We played on these giant maps like Blood Gulch and all these other giant maps where it took forever to get to each other. My friend Joe, who again has been on this podcast, done side quests, shout out to Joe Mastrapiro, very early on realized that when we were on opposite ends of Blood Gulch, if he sang the Doug theme, the Nicktoon, Doug, he could do the entire 30-second, 40-second theme, whatever it was, before the rocket collided with one of us. And so Brian and I would be having a shootout, and then all of a sudden in the background, we'd hear Joe just start to go, and we would scramble. We would panic. Where's it coming from? Which way? Oh my God. And it was just like, it's very dumb. It makes no sense. But like, that's one of my fondest memories tied to Halo. The story and stuff, sure, but that. So my Xbox experience was very much communal. I feel like the Xbox, because it also had 4 ports in the front, like the N64, was very much designed around local co-op. Like towards the tail end of the Xbox, it was online, but for the most part, this was still a local co-op console.
Xbox Live itself started November 15th, 2002, so it was about a year after the Xbox came out and ran for a while. It wasn't discontinued until 2010.
Yeah.
The funny part about that was they shut down the servers on April 15th. But it wasn't like April 15th, if you were on a game, like it kicked you out.
Yeah.
It meant that as long as you were on, it kept going. So Microsoft turned it off on April 15th. The servers didn't close until, I believe, May 11th. Yep. People leaving their consoles on, staying in lobby, starting up more games, until finally the last one turned off from like just being on for too long. Like it overheated.
I think what I was thinking of was Xbox Live Arcade, which didn't come till 2004, which is what I think of with like online. But yeah, it basically launched with online capabilities. And this was the era of starting to eke that out. We talked about it with the PS2 and with the GameCube. They both had online capabilities, but like they didn't really use it. Xbox definitely used it more than those consoles did. And it would become the bread and butter for the 360, which we talked about.
Well, this is also very much a way that it's in line with Sega. The Dreamcast also had a built-in 56K modem with a modem out. Now, how much they got to use that? Well, they didn't last very long. But this then becomes comparing the Xbox to the PS2. There were exclusives, but otherwise it was that kind of like a difference of resolution or a few features between them. And it's kind of where they come forth. Both the PS2 and the Xbox had media playback and internet connectivity. But each of them required an accessory for the other, where the PS2 was a native DVD player because Sony is a media company, so they've already got the DVD licensing fees and everything already taken care of, but you had to buy the modem to install in the back. Whereas Microsoft came with internet connectivity, and then you had to buy an accessory if you wanted to use this honking behemoth to actually play any DVDs. It takes up that much of your media center, and if your parents are upset about like, well, how are we gonna watch Memento now? You got to pay more money.
Yeah.
But Xbox Live was a way for them to make some money back because there was a subscription fee.
Right. And like they wouldn't, with the 360, that thing played DVDs right out of the box because they weren't going to make that mistake again.
Right.
They made other mistakes with the 360, but this isn't about that. We already talked about that. So I want to start with the controllers because the Duke, the Duke, which I thought I made that up or was like a colloquial thing. No, that's the canonical name of that controller, which makes me very happy. The Duke launched with the Xbox. And they would eventually get around to the controller that was the later generations, the smaller form during this era towards the end. But the Duke was this giant, massive ball-shaped controller with little nubs on the bottom, basically. And everyone I know complained about this controller. It's too big. I can't reach the buttons. Meanwhile, with my giant person hands, I held that controller and went, they made a controller for me. Like, this one fits perfectly. It just never read as too big to me. But I remember, like, that was like a big thing, that the Duke was just this weird big controller that nobody liked at launch. And I'm sure it's exaggerated by my memory of it, but that's what it felt like, at least.
It was made for Western hands.
Yeah.
They made the smaller controller when they shipped it to Japan, and then eventually made that standard. I may not have as massive of hands as you, Matt, but I do have very long fingers, so it fit pretty well on my hands as well. It felt closer to a Dreamcast controller, just a little, thicker.
There are a couple things about these controllers. So the original Duke, which was the big one we're talking about, and then the redesigned S, which feels more what the standard became afterwards. Again, I talked about inverted was the first way I played, and it's hard for me to not go inverted. Having the offset sticks, I think, was a game changer for me. Because, again, so offset sticks for anyone, just for whatever reason you don't know. The left stick, top left corner of the controller, the right stick, bottom right. As much as I like PlayStation controllers, I'm not going to dog on PlayStation. Having those two sticks, again, at the time, it wasn't a big deal because we weren't using multi-directional things until this gen. So it did not matter. But nowadays, like smashing my thumbs together because I want to walk right and look left is annoying. And there was never a thing. Xbox has never had that issue because they're so far apart. So I was used to that hand position, triggers here, buttons here where I'm looking around, but like my moving and looking were never impeded by going after each other. And that's just the way I got used to it. So even when I play a third-party controller or I play on PC, I still need offset stick. Like, we're not talking about Nintendo, but when they make their Pro controllers, yes, give me offset sticks. I don't want my fingers potentially touching each other. It's just a thing I've grown up with and I have no other choice. Also, another just funny thing. I don't know if the other consoles had this, but I remember the Xbox having the breakaway cables. Just in case your friend's dog ran across, instead of pulling out completely, like about, 6 to 8 inches outside of the plug into the controller, there was another thing that would break away in case it happened. So your console's not going to get pulled off of the entertainment center, and it'll just detach at this point. I don't know why. I don't know if that actually makes a difference, but I remember that being a thing that came into play a couple times. There's like, oh yeah, Joe's stupid dog would come through. Thank God we had breakaway controllers, I guess.
I mean, I have absolutely had the occurrence of somebody tripped on a cable and the console just fell onto the floor. That has happened to me, and I know I'm not alone in that. And so thank you for reminding me about that. Yeah, that breakaway shit was brilliant. And it's one of those ideas that you look at it and you go, why have we not been doing this the entire time?
Yeah. I mean, so they're a double-edged sword. I would agree that they were great when people like tripped over your console wires. They, however, sucked when you lost the breakaway part and then you had controllers you could not use. They'd fix it with the Xbox 360 era because while they were standard wired controllers, they also had the plug-and-play controllers where it was basically like the breakaway, but it was the charger cable. It's funny what you would think would become standard. Also, Xbox to be different. So they had colored buttons for their face buttons. They had X, Y, A, and B, but they refused to fit the standard of Nintendo, making the rest of our lives miserable because now nobody matches anybody else.
Nope.
And they had the back button. It was start and back instead of start and select. To speak to the offset sticks thing, I love offset sticks when playing a shooter or a game where I need both sticks. I hate offset sticks when I'm playing a Metroidvania or a 2D game and I want the D-pad. Also, notoriously, the Xbox D-pads were not great.
The original Xbox D-pad is garbage.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Well, why would you use it? You're using the analog stick. Obviously,
the future.
This is the future.
Yeah. So I really love this controller. It's funny, we usually talk a lot about accessories. The Xbox, besides the remote that you needed to play DVDs, didn't have a ton of accessories. It had a few things, but for the most part, it wasn't as, I don't want to say gimmicky, but I guess gimmicky is the word. Like Nintendo consoles often had a lot of stuff because they did a lot of wacky stuff, whereas the Xbox was the serious adult gamer machine. It didn't have any whimsical stuff for it, really.
Mad Catz came out with a couple of things. There was a microphone for music games. There was the light blaster for like light gun games. And then there was the most... Why do you need other accessories when you are the console that has Steel Battalion?
I mean, that's true. So, we were going to talk about this eventually, so we should talk about Steel Battalion now, a game that I didn't play until a couple of years ago for the first time, because no one I knew ever owned it, but I think we were at MagFest, Jen, when I first played it, and there was literally a room with the giant mech controller. So Jen, tell the listener a little bit about what Steel Battalion was in case they don't know.
So Steel Battalion was a mech game put out by Capcom in 2002, Xbox exclusive, that came with its own controller. What kind of controller? The most serious mech action controller you could imagine. The greatest immersion you can have in your home mech experience. This motherfucker had 3 pedals, 2 joysticks, a throttle, like a gear throttle. It had an eject button under the little glass thing or plastic thing that you had to flip up in order to hit it. And there was a full startup sequence. I'm looking up right now how many buttons are on this thing, because Jesus Christ. And it sold for $200 base because it came with the controller. It's like playing Dance Dance Revolution without the dance pad. Oh, you could kind of do that a little bit. No, you use all the buttons in order to do this. The first time I played it was at a whatever convention. I don't remember which one it was. It was in the console free play area. Someone had left it in the middle of a mission. I had no earthly idea how to use this thing. I now have the Wikipedia article up for Steel Battalion. The controller consists of 44 input points, mainly buttons, but also uses 2 joysticks, a throttle handle, a radio channel dial, 5 switches, an eject button, and 3 foot pedals. I believe it had a collector's edition within it that had like a full steel box and everything else. This was a game where if you did not eject your pilot out and your mech blew up, your pilot was dead, and your save file was deleted.
Yep.
This was the serious action for serious gamers. Xbox.
Yeah, this is going back to them being like, we need to establish ourselves. Capcom has a weird idea for a strange, it's a $200 game because you have to buy this crazy, approved.
Yeah.
Do it. We need people to remember this game. And people still talk about Steel Battalion. Maybe it worked.
Yeah.
Whether or not it converted into profit or anything like that, or how many people it got adopting Xbox, it certainly does have us all talking. So
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games that highlights the importance of preservation, right? Like, whether a game is good or bad sometimes doesn't matter, often doesn't matter. What matters is what it means for gaming. And like Steel Battalion is a thing that is very hard to come by now, very rare, because it was this giant project. And like, I think preserving games like that are just as important as preserving games like, you know, the greatest games that are ever made. And that's a good point, Jen, also. Like, the weirdness that Xbox leaned into was not the kind of whimsy that Nintendo leaned into. It was often this stuff like Steel Battalion, right? These weird ass games. I mean, I think of the Dead or Alive series, which to me is an Xbox series, specifically Dead or Alive 3. I loved 3D fighting games. I grew up on Virtual Fighter. And like Virtual Fighter by this time still existed, but wasn't like the brand that it was with the first 2 games earlier on. Dead or Alive was the game that I played that I was like, oh, a 3D arena fighter. Yes, it was praised for its jiggle physics. Who cares? It's a legit badass fighting game also on top of all of the other horny stuff, which usually I'm an advocate for, but is not the point here. And so like those kinds of games like that felt very Xbox to me. This is a console that has, I think, a stronger identity than other individual consoles for me because of when it came out and what it was trying to do.
Also, Dead or Alive is an interesting through line in terms of it being a bit of picking up Sega's legacy, certainly with just the OG Xbox, where Dead or Alive, the original, was an arcade title, and it was on the PlayStation, but I think it was most strongly made for the Saturn.
Yep.
And Dead or Alive 2 made its way to the PlayStation 2 as Dead or Alive Hardcore, but was originally a Dreamcast game. And so Dead or Alive 3, having that strong association with the Xbox, it does feel correct. And then when it spun off, it stayed on the Xbox. I absolutely agree with it being very much part of the identity of the original Xbox.
My first introduction to all the Ninja Gaiden characters, because of that, I mean, also Ninja Gaiden being another thing on the Xbox that was important. But yeah, I played a lot of Dead or Alive 3 for many reasons as a young teenager, but it was actually like legit, like a really fun fighting game. And then I was like, yeah, who's this cool ninja named Ryu? I mean, I don't really know much about him, but he seems all right. And then eventually playing Ninja Gaiden. Oh yeah, there's like 5 fighters in that Dead or Alive that are just the main characters of that game too. And it's like, oh, thank you for introducing me to a cool new world and also just like a pretty cool series. I mean, it's fallen off since. This is probably the strongest or most important entry in the game, I think, because that game continues. I think it's now like a weird free-to-play version of a
Probably,
thing.
yeah.
But at the time, I was like, yeah, this is solid. It made an impact. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and as somebody where I played the original Ninja Gaiden on the NES religiously, when Dead or Alive first came to PlayStation and Sega Saturn, I was delighted, like, oh my gosh, Ryu Hayabusa. Oh, it's meant to be the same guy. That's super cool, kind of thing. It just seemed like a neat Easter egg. And even at that point, I was already used to, like, yeah, references will be made. Doesn't mean everything's getting a sequel or whatever. And then finally it coming back around to a Ninja Gaiden title, I didn't have an Xbox and I still lost my mind to it.
I mean, I think also Jen's point about Xbox carrying Sega's legacy, while Sega in this era would split amongst the three consoles and release for a lot of stuff, there were a lot of games that were really associated with this. I mean, obviously, I'm going to talk about Jet Set Radio Future has a big tie to this console and this console generation. I mean, it was one of those games that was so stylish and so unique. It was something that you could only play on Xbox. Same with Jade Empire, which has its great many flaws now, but at the time was kind of mind-blowing, right? Both the design, what it was capable of, the voice acting. Unfortunately, mostly white people playing not white people, but beyond that, like, that was also more common at that time.
Look, Yuri Lowenthal did a great job as the Prince of Persia, but you wouldn't do that casting now. We know this. We have proven it, in fact.
Yes. Or Jake Gyllenhaal in the movie, but we won't get into that. Or Ben Kingsley. Anyway, yeah. But Jet Set Radio Future was one of those games where it's like, oh, I heard about this game on the Dreamcast, Jet Set Radio. I never really got to play it. What's it about? And then kind of opening it up to this world. A game that the vibe of which we're still chasing to this day. I think of Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which came out, which is very much influenced by this game, openly so. I think there were a lot of games for this console that came out that, like, were genre defining and style defining. I mean, look, we talked about Halo briefly, and we'll talk about it more, but Halo 1 and 2 changed first-person shooters, full stop. You know, GoldenEye started that path for sure, but like Halo cemented it, and Halo is a name brand that, for better or worse, is still running today. But at the time, Bungie is a name because of these games, right? Like, they planted their flag. Halo, I think, is the first time really that a shooter became ubiquitous since like the early days of Doom and stuff, right? There were other shooters that were probably popular too. I think of Call of Duty and SOCOM, but there was something about Halo that felt like a cultural point in a way that other shooters hadn't been in a while.
I mean, you name dropped GoldenEye there. We had releases that people could have fun party game situations, could have, oh, this is a cool shooter experience, but it didn't feel like the full PC experience, as it were. It was like, this is a cool watered down experience, the way that older consoles were chasing that high of arcade perfect conversion. Halo, whether it was the first one or not, culturally, it felt like the first time it wasn't watered down. There wasn't an asterisk or a caveat to it. It was just a damned good first-person shooter experience on console.
Yeah.
And define the feel of how that it worked to play on a console. Because we look back at GoldenEye, obviously very popular, but with a grain of salt because it's so many years ago. The control scheme for it makes no sense in a modern days. Like, I'm moving with C buttons and moving with one stick and looking completely around with the other stick. I don't know if it's the first one, but definitely, popularized that control style, and we have not moved away from that because it works. It's great. Move with this, look with that. It's great. No problems.
No, Matt and I were on a podcast a couple of years ago talking about GoldenEye 007, so we both revisited it, and the memories are still there, but one stick is not enough. You need two. And you're right, Adam. Whether it was the first one or whatever else, it certainly, for a lot of people, cemented it. If anything after Halo that did anything different, unless it was for a very specific reason or a cool reason or whatever else, it just felt wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got a problem.
Yeah. Sure.
Not a problem. Matt, I love how you mentioned Jade Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about KOTOR. I mean, BioWare was established through those two games, but I think one of them might have been bigger than the other. I love both.
Yeah.
I love both.
This was a big thing for Microsoft and for Xbox, where BioWare was a PC developer.
Yeah.
There is that idea of certainly this generation. Dreamcast is part of it, but the PlayStation 2 GameCube, Xbox idea. PlayStation 2 got all these third-party things going on and so cool, and relationships from the PS1 and GameCube. Oh, there's no games on it, whatever kind of crap. Xbox, by being a Microsoft console and being the first major console to use an Intel x86 architecture, something that was easier for PC developers to quickly adapt to, was able to be like, hey, you want to get in on this console money? Come on, Xbox. And so you got developers like BioWare, and you got experiences like Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember, Adam, I played Knights of the Old Republic for the first time on the Switch like 2 or 3 years ago. Unspoiled, mind you, and still still experienced that twist in the wild, which just flabbergasted me. But like, you have to remember also, for me, I'm a BioWare fan from Mass Effect on. Like, I've gone back and played the other games, but Mass Effect is the one that was like, wait, who the hell is BioWare? When everyone else, like my friend Andrew, and I've told the story before, is like, what do you mean you don't know BioWare? They've made some of the greatest games ever. But like, I didn't know. But you're right. There was also like a leaning into, I think, very arcadey games on this console in a way. I think of the Midnight Club games, especially Dub Edition. Like, those arcade racers were just so different from the kind of already for sure, the simulation games like Gran Turismo on PlayStation, but then also even their arcadey games like Need for Speed. You know, they ebbed and flowed. Hot Pursuit on the PlayStation 1 is one of their best titles, but then as they got to PS2, kind of got a little more convoluted, whereas Dub Edition specifically, but also just Midnight Club, was just arcade, licensed music, heart-pounding stuff, and like it was really engaging in a way, again, that they weren't doing in other places. Also, you make a good point, Jen, the PC connection, like, now PC and Xbox is ubiquitous. If you have PC Game Pass, you can play most of Xbox's library on the PC. But at the time, that wasn't a matter of fact, but it was headed in that direction. I think of the PC release of Halo being huge and games like that, because they could do it in both those places, they had a bigger reach in a way that obviously a lot of games on the PlayStation, and for sure nothing on the GameCube, had that same kind of reach.
Yeah, and from the beginning, I think they were trying to merge the two and kind of have Xbox be the anglerfish of PC gaming, where at this point, if I was doing any PC gaming, it was on a Mac. So I knew Bungie through Marathon. This is fine.
Hey, that's relevant again, so, you know.
I mean, there we go. But I actually didn't play that much Marathon, but I did play it a little bit way back when, just as kind of a like, this is for us kind of thing. It was more the thing of a lot of the development. I mean, Microsoft, of course, leveraging their relationships with PC manufacturers to get parts and things for the Xbox that made it more like a PC, which also made it one of the more moddable consoles. Like, you could actually swap out the hard disk and it really did something. You know, you could absolutely ship a Theseus your Xbox and it's still just a whole crazy ass machine. And then by that point, you've jailbroken it and you've turned it into something else. Like, the mod videos, like Modern Vintage Gamers videos about what you can do with an Xbox in the year 2026, it's absolute madness. I love it. There is that idea of, over time, consoles just became more and more PCs with a specialized storefront, for good or for ill. And the original Xbox was kind of the beginning of that. I do say this, and I caveat that with the interface, the non-game interface of the Xbox, fucked severely in 2001, and it fucks severely now. Yes. Trying to navigate the music player, the media player, get any of that going on, just the sheer gamer Mountain Dew, MTV, Windows Media Player visualizer experience that is navigating your Xbox interface. We've lost something over the years.
Yeah. Being on the inside of a green lava lamp was definitely a choice that I enjoy.
Look, we said this in the 360 episode also. While I can't credit Xbox for very much, I can credit them for having some of the best interface designs. I liked the damn sliding Windows titles.
Oh, the blades.
Yeah. You know, the Xbox 360 redesign was good also, but I liked the blades. I thought it was cool. The thing that kills me the most, and the reason I'm glad that Jen brings up the interface, I think we talked about this with the PS2 interface and the weird sounds and the drawing and all, and the zooming in and out. Modern consoles, like, they're fine, but like, I think about the PS5 and the Switch 2, which is what I have, and they're like barely an interface at all. Mostly it's a collection of tiles that you scroll through, and it's just like, where's the zhuzh? Where's the fun? Where's the adventure in that?
I think part of it is the fact that the Xbox, the PS2, that generation of consoles was still in a time when you would fully turn off your console. You know, the
True.
PS2's startup noise may not be as nostalgically fulfilling as the PS1's. It still is distinct, and it still has a great deal of nostalgia to it. The original Xbox is just as much. That kind of like radio tune-in, like emergence of it all was effing cool. How often do you hear the startup of a PlayStation 5? You put it to sleep, you turn it on. If you are turning it on, it is because your UPS reset and it's going to tell you, hey, if you want to properly turn this off, you do these things. Yeah, I know it was an accident, PlayStation, but if you want to properly turn this off, yeah, I know, PlayStation, God, kind of feeling. So we have a different use case now. But in servicing that idea of the quick start, quick off, there is design still to how you navigate a modern Xbox or a PlayStation 5 or even a Nintendo Switch. But it doesn't have quite the same dedication or design to, I don't know, a useless joy in its navigation. Very much that Oscar Wilde, all art is quite useless kind of feeling that I like useless things in my gaming.
Yeah, for sure.
Some soul, personality. So I have two things really quick because we're moving, and this is great. I'm doing back on two things. Matt, do you know the story about the unveiling of the original Xbox? Because Jen does not, and I have to tell this really dumb story.
Oh, please do. I don't remember. I feel like I do know, but please.
Okay. So the Xbox was shown off at CES 2001. They showed the release date and prices at E3, but, you know, CES was before. On stage, Bill Gates, makes sense, CEO of Microsoft, that guy, no problem, also joined on stage to present, showing off the box initially, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh, yes, I do remember this. Yes.
No reason at all. Don't know why DJ was up there, but I mean, he was still a wrestler. Like, he was, I don't even think he had done maybe The Mummy at this point. I don't know why he was there, but yeah, Bill Gates and The Rock on stage showing off the original Xbox. It's funny you didn't know. It's such a crazy story.
He's the only man strong enough to lift the original Xbox.
It's true. That thing was heavy.
The other thing, Xbox Live. Online gaming was not a new thing. Xbox Live required broadband, so it's like none of that AOL nonsense. Get real internet or you can't play with your friends. Parties, party chat. The basics for what all online gaming became was more established, I think, on Xbox Live than anything else. Just the whole that we're going to party up and keep playing the same game together instead of like, I hope we can get in the same North American lobby over and over again. No, it was like you and your friends are talking on a headset in the same thing.
Things we take for granted now are things that are just like, why is the save icon still a floppy disk? Because it's what it's been. This is what we're built off of. Not exactly, but just those sort of, sometimes you go back, and they're like, where did this really, it wasn't the first thing, but what really set the evolution? Xbox Live. What was before that? Sega Channel? And other very specific, specialized experiences. There was always the matter of infrastructure in online networking. And yet again, Nintendo, the GameCube does have online capabilities. The PS2 did have the capability to go online, and there were games to support it on both those consoles. Microsoft, being a PC-focused developer, company, software corporation, already had those ideas in mind and could already bring those things forward. Not even getting into whatever the behind the scenes of getting that set up was, they brought that to consoles as well. What we now know as online gaming, our Game Passes and PlayStation Plus and everything else, Xbox Live started there.
Yeah, without a doubt. Before we start to celebrate the games, and we've done some of that, we have to talk about some of the greatest tragedies that this console offered. The biggest one for me will always be Toe Jam and Earl 3 Mission to Earth, which, like, look, Toe Jam and Earl is a game that's pretty simplistic. The original game is isometric, and, like, you're collecting ship parts, and it's pretty straightforward, nothing to sneeze at, but a fun game. Second game, 2D platformer, they change it up, also really fun. For this game, they're like, what if we took that original game but made it 3D and made the controls worse? Well, here you go. And what kills me more about this game is that it's director is Greg Johnson, who made the first 2 games. So, like, there was potential for this game to be great. And instead, it was absolutely awful. The voice acting was terrible and annoying. It had everything going for it to be a great game, and it just was one of the worst video games I think I've ever played to this day.
Well, I will give you the true legacy of the original Xbox.
Uh-huh.
It's where mascot characters went to die.
You are correct. Yeah.
Toe Jam and Earl 3.
Yeah.
Conquer Live and Reloaded.
Yeah.
Even things that started on the Xbox. We all love the games of Blink's The Time Sweeper that have gone on since the Xbox to be wonderfully successful, well-regarded, well-remembered.
Yeah.
Mascots die on the Xbox.
Blinks and Voodoo Vince were hanging out in that retirement home.
Voodoo Vince. Yeah, baby.
To that end, though, Vex wasn't a terrible game, although I think Vex was multi-platform. Mascot platformers were an interesting time here. And yeah, the Xbox wasn't really known for it, but like, to that end, this is what I consider a multiplayer console. I spent a lot of time playing multiplayer games on this, and we touted Halo 1 and 2, but like, of course, all the sports games, and like, to me, as much as I love X-Men Legends, and I owned it on the PS2, I played it the most on the original Xbox.
Because you could get 4 players going.
Yeah, and same for the sequel, Rise of Apocalypse. And so that made it worth it, whereas on the PS2, you could only get 4 players playing games like that with the multi-tap, which nobody had the multi-tap. Nobody used that.
I have it now as a matter of circumstance and collecting. I did not have it at the time, and I will make no claims to what are you talking about, Matt. You're speaking truth. You are speaking truth.
But I'm curious, like, Adam, were there like go-to games that you grew up playing on the Xbox besides the big ones we've already named? Like, are there any other standouts to you that were like really integral to your time with this console?
Yeah, there's definitely a couple. So I played tackle football for 6 years, maybe 7 years of my young adult life. And the thing that got me into football, so I was born in Indiana, right? So at this time, like, Peyton Manning was a rookie and was like very exciting, really, really good player. There was a game called NFL Fever, which was an Xbox exclusive sports game.
Yeah.
You know, I had an Xbox. I started to be interested in the sport, and then this guy from my local team was on the cover of it. So not Madden, NFL Fever is what got me into video game football, which then led to me playing real football for, again, like a good portion of my young adult life. So it's literally all credited to NFL Fever 2002 is why I played football for 6 years.
And they say video games keep us from exercising and going outside.
Right?
No, it's great. It was wonderful. That's just a silly one. One for me that is a pretty big one that we haven't talked about yet. There's a young company called Ubisoft who before they were making, checklist tower games, they were doing some interesting things, a lot of military, a lot of Tom Clancy or whatever. But a classic stealth series, my favorite stealth series, sorry Kojima, Splinter Cell was an original Xbox exclusive, and I adore Sam Fisher. I love those video games, and playing all of those games on the original, all 1, 2, and 3 were all original Xbox exclusives.
Yeah.
And I adored it. I mean, especially I think Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, which is the third one, is one of the highest rated games on Metacritic. Like, it is upper 90s. I'm pretty sure it's one of the best reviewed games of all time, and it was so at the time. So cool. I don't want to go back because I'm sure it doesn't hold up. But like cutting cloth to like go into a tent and sneak up behind a guy and take him out, I was like, this is unreal. So Splinter Cell was that game.
I mean, there was the building of the stealth genre from the generation before. Yeah, you had Metal Gear Solid, but you also had like Tenchu, which was fun, but not exactly groundbreaking. And we were getting a little more like, Thief came onto the Xbox. That one was a lot of fun. And Splinter Cell holds up. Like, there's some awkwardness and some memory about it, but hell yeah. Let's go Sam Fisher.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
It's also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say I was talking about Need for Speed being on PlayStation, but it was on the Xbox also. Like, it was available both. So, but Midnight Club was Xbox exclusive. But like, yeah, I mean, also I think of like, there are games that were multi-platform that I strongly identify with this console. I think of the Metal Slug games for one. Like, you can get them in other places, but I remember just putting so much time, especially into Metal Slug 3, on this console, just playing the hell out of it. And I loved run and gun games. And at this time, like Contra had really kind of disappeared. There wasn't really a lot of it anymore. And like to me, Metal Slug is like the evolution of Contra, though we've gone back to it and there's some great Contra games. There's something like kind of really special about Metal Slug, especially the third one, which is one of my favorites.
And yet again, something that allowed for cool multiplayer.
Yes.
And like just good, mindless fun. Getting into Xbox Live Arcade times, something like Metal Slug slots in so nicely. It's funny also, given the amount of multi-platform games that were going on at this time, it's funny to think about the fact that the PlayStation 2, tech-wise, was kind of the worst one.
Yeah.
It was the weakest console. Everyone wonders if the GameCube was like, as far as architecture goes, as far as what was possible, the GameCube smoked the PS2 and the Xbox smoked everybody.
Yeah.
But if you had to make it multi-platform, it was mostly a difference of like resolution. But things that started as Xbox titles really got to show off some cool stuff. I mean, like for a long time, I played Psychonauts on the PS2 because I had a PS2. But I originally played it on my friend's Xbox. And now when I play it at home, I play it on my Xbox because that's where Double Fine made it. That's what it was supposed to be for. And by God, it feels good on the Xbox.
Yeah, a lot of multi-platform games play better on the Xbox. And when I play games through totally legal and fair means on my Steam Deck, if I can get the Xbox version to work, I pick that version. Not just because the buttons map correctly, because we're not, again, why? So famously, Max Payne does not work on Steam. Like if you buy the Steam version, it is broken. It will not run without tons of mods or other things. And even then. And so when I bought it, found that out, and then promptly returned it because I couldn't get it to work, I then downloaded the Xbox version on my Steam Deck and like ran like a dream. No problem. Well, there were problems. The platforming sections can still die in a fire, but the rest of it, awesome. And such a great way to play it. That's a thing that is easy to forget, is that because the Xbox was kind of designed like a PC or with a PC in mind, it just was easier, I think, to develop for than the more exclusive consoles. And also, PS2 just had a lot of other hardware problems beyond that. As much as I hate the damn mini discs in the GameCube, they ran pretty well because it was proprietary, at least for the first party stuff. But I feel like the Xbox always looked the best. I mean, again, even replaying Halo now, the original Halo and Halo 2, those games look good. I'm cautiously optimistic about Campaign Evolved, which we're getting, I think, later this year on PlayStation 5. But like when they did the remasters for the Master Chief Collection, when I replayed it, I mostly played it on the original graphics. Like they look good. They have character in a way that when you like add more electronics and smooth stuff over, it's just not the same. There was something to the design ethos for those games that just really popped on the original Xbox.
Yeah, and this is reminding me that I need to go back and give Ninja Gaiden another try because I didn't have it growing up. I played it at friends' houses, and I was about as good at it as you would expect somebody who regularly played video games but didn't own this game. So I got my ass handed to me over and over and over again. And I did inherit my brother's collection of Xbox games. When he upgraded to other things and, in various moves, I was like, I'm not going to take this with me all the time. Here, Jen, it's yours. So I should go back and play Ninja Gaiden. And I also inherited a game from him that I'm terrified to start. I genuinely have trepidation and anxiety, but it calls to me. Morrowind.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have experienced a great deal of Morrowind watching my brother play it. My brother has certain series and things that he will absolutely dive into, but he loves Elder Scrolls. When I got him Skyrim for the first time for his 360, he called me a week later and went, "Do you hate me? Do you want me to lose my job? Do you want me to just ruin my life? Because you have given me the keys to ruining my life." It's a mix of I should have and did remember how many hours he put into Morrowind. And God, the possibilities of that wonderful, janky world.
Yeah, I mean that's the only Elder Scrolls I've not played. I've played Skyrim and Oblivion. I love them both, but Morrowind is one of those legendary games that I've never played and I've always heard great things about. And anyone who owned an Xbox and was an RPG nerd, like, laud that game as still one of the best RPGs, which always keeps me interested.
Yeah, I've played Skyrim. It's fine. It's good.
Yeah.
I've played a little bit of Oblivion. Cool. But like Morrowind, it's that sort of, I think this is like the right Venn diagram of I'm going to disappear, like cosmically from this realm.
I mean, Morrowind was straight up. That's just a PC port. That
It
is a
is.
PC-ass RPG, and they're like, we made it run on a console, and it is PC as PC can be.
And we have been trying to do that since the NES. There were PC-ass RPGs, like Western PC RPGs that we were trying to put onto the NES with varying levels of success and adaptation. And yet again, this was the first time PC and console soared together or something. Yeah, we got perfect-ass ports like that. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, for sure.
I have 4 points. This is how my brain works. I've got 4 points of things that I want to run by y'all. Okay.
Yeah, please do.
I love being not the only ADHD person on this call.
I mean,
love
it's
this.
really helpful, honestly.
Not
Continue.
diagnosed, but I wouldn't be
Please.
shocked. So the first thing, talking just a little dumb because we're talking about the button placement.
Mhm.
Matt,
Yeah.
where's the y-axis in real life? What's the y-axis?
It's the up down one, right?
Up and down, and the
Yeah.
x-axis is left to right.
Yeah.
The y is at the top
The
of the
X is-
Xbox controller. The x is at
X
the
to the
left of
left.
it. It's almost like it's on the x and the y-axis, unlike the Nintendo one.
I would
Ah.
like
Just saying.
I would also like to point out that PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox controllers all have an X button, and none of them are in the same place.
Correct. Yeah.
I've made this observation before. I'm not the first person to make this observation, but it must be observed here.
Yeah. I mean,
Just
also,
saying. X and
al-
y-axis. In the right
also,
spots.
I will say that on the Xbox controller, they're in, if we're going from left to right, even though it's in an angle, they are in order X, Y, A, B. Whereas Nintendo flips it.
Smart
This speaks to Western reading, left to right, rather than right to left, and also something of, so before you put letters into this, I think of controller orientation in PlayStation terms.
Yeah.
The PS1 was a formative console for me, and so I know where all those buttons are. Everything's fine there. And the reason why there is an X and a circle button is because those were meant to be no and yes, respectively, in a very kind of confirm, whatever else. It's why Final Fantasy VII, you confirm with the circle button, you cancel with the X button. That is their intended use. But in the West, for whatever reason, we would keep using the bottom button to do these things. And yet again, for Nintendo, those map to A and B. The circle is A, the B is X. So there again, confirm, cancel. But we just kept trying to use the bottom button, and eventually PlayStation and Sony just went, fine, we're going to flip them for the West. We're going to keep it the same for our stuff, and y'all can just, here, I don't care anymore, whatever. So anytime you import a game, like for PSP or PS1, you have to remember this. It will fuck you up.
Be real
But
careful.
there again, the Xbox, the bottom button is A, and the right button is B. We have gone the Western way of confirm and cancel. This is a valueless observation. It's just very interesting.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So my other ones, two of them are jokes and one of them is a real. Another Xbox exclusive, very middling game, but a really cool idea. Do y'all remember Breakdown?
Ooh, I actually,
Breakdown
Don't.
is an action adventure, like it's got shooting and it's got, fist fighting or whatever. It isn't a game played entirely from first person. Cutscenes are first person. All combat is first person. You
do
eat a
remember
cheeseburger and
this.
throw up in first person. Again, not that great of a game, but what a weird thing that a Namco published game where
Nice.
everything's first person. And the other two, you'll remember that, again, navel gazing, looking at the Game Pretty panel at PAX. The last question was OG Xbox exclusives. And the answer that Matt gave for that question was Fusion Frenzy, which we have not talked about yet.
Yeah.
Shout out to that. Again, every console needs a party game. Fusion Frenzy was definitely one of those.
It sure was. It was a video game that you could play.
I had fun with it. It was on every demo disc, so
Yeah.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
playing those demo discs.
Yeah.
Fusion Frenzy.
I have several Xbox Magazine demo discs. I loved that era of demo discs. We did an episode on demo discs. I need to do 1,000 more. I'd like panels all the time. I don't care. But The one I put down was Armed and Dangerous for that answer as the audience speaker.
Yeah, it was a good guess. That you're not the first person to guess that when I did test run. But the correct answer to that last question was, in fact, brute force. Let me tell you, there's not really much to talk about. It's a 4-player. It's got you have a squad of 4 people shooting aliens on alien worlds. Brute force is if, like, were you a sicko? Were you one of those weird kids? You probably had. I mean, me and Jacob McCord had brute force. That's all I know.
Yeah.
me and Jacob played it, and we were all about it. So shout out to brute force.
I mean, you do get to play as a big crazy lizard man with a big crazy gun and got superpowers. Like, what's wrong with that? I love
big
video
lizard
games.
man. Name's Brutus.
Yeah, it's brute
Brutus
force. Brutus force. You think you're being funny? It's like, yes, Mr. Brutus Force. No, that's his name. Oh. One that I do want to shout out that isn't exactly an exclusive, but it was, as far as consoles, was only on Xbox until it got a re-release nearly 20 years later, was Stubbs the Zombie, Rebel Without a Pulse.
Yep,
Stubbs,
I have that on PC. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of those games where they're just flipping the genre. Like, what if you were the zombie? And everyone's like, of course.
It had a rhythm game piece where you had to dance off with the mayor. It really knew what it was about.
Yeah.
And to my earlier semi-serious bit about Xbox being where mascots go to die, Oddworld really made a goddamned good try on the Xbox. Between Munch's Odyssey and Stranger's Wrath, they really took some cool gameplay swings with both of those. Storytelling ideas within established genres. I loved the Abe games. Loved them to tears. And so it was wild playing Munch's Odyssey on a friend's Xbox and just having kind of I don't know what I'm doing here. Oh my God, I need some time with this. Jeez. But it's a cool game. And you do some really neat stuff. And the original version in North America, there's Sobe, the not quite energy drink, the drink company. A lot of the health vending machines were Sobe, S-O-B-E. The iguana on it?
The glass bottles, right?
Yeah, glass bottles. And that I looked this up because I had to track this. That wasn't an advertising deal. It was an expression of love and solid. Like, Sobe did do some promotions for Munch's Odyssey. Like, there were, by all accounts, like, no money changed hands. It was just like kind of a favor for favor or something. But for a game that is like a game series that is nature forward and anti-capitalist, it's fine. We've got vending machines with these drinks here. After the last game being like, hey, there's vending machines with drinks here. The drinks are made from the bones and tears of the people you're trying to save. Don't look into what's in Sobe. It's going to be fine. Mixed messages is all I'm saying.
Someone was just having fun. The director was like, I just like this drink.
Yeah, exactly. Basically.
Like, I keep thinking about the bit from the critic. It's just like, and there's no fish sticks, like Mrs. Pell's. Mr. Wells, this isn't an ad. I know that. It was just an expression of love.
While we're talking about goofy exclusives, one game that I actually got pretty decent reviews at the time and I've still never played is the Buffy the Vampire Slayer video game. The only Buffy the Vampire Slayer, well, not tech, there's a Game Boy Advance game, a Game Boy Color game too, but one of the few console games that Buffy ever got, and it was exclusive to the Xbox.
Yeah, the sequel was multi-platform.
Right. And there haven't been a lot of Buffy games since either. And so it's a rarity. And as a diehard Buffy fan, though Joss Whedon can go fuck himself, I've always been curious about it. And I think next year I'm going to have to put it on my backlog list and like just see if I can get a ROM running, because I've always been fascinated by it. And like, this was in an era where licensed games were a dime a dozen. In fact, the collective that made this also made these gems: Men in Black, the Game of Life, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Fallen, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb.
Which is fun.
It is fun. X-Files, Star Wars Episode 3, and it goes on. And so they made Mark Echo's Get Up. That's awesome, actually. And the Da Vinci Code.
What a portfolio.
But still, I've always genuinely been curious about it. And I didn't play it because it was exclusive and I didn't have an Xbox and none of my friends had any interest in playing Buffy, even though I wanted to. And so like, it's just things like that also that this console is full of like bizarre exclusives that were really interesting. And like, this was also the era where we talked about this a little with the PS2, but like Castlevania trying new things in 3D. I think of Curse of Darkness. which I also played on this console, which was followed up by Lament of Innocence.
Other way around.
Oh, it was the other way around. It was the follow-up to Lament of Innocence. Lament of Innocence, where I only played to completion like a few years ago and ended up really loving. And so I've always been, I remember renting Curse of Darkness at the time, but I don't know that I ever got very far in it. And gun to my head, I couldn't tell you anything about this game now.
It played heavily into the Netflix series.
Did it really? Interesting.
This is where you got Hector and Isaac from.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to go back to it.
Their characterization is very different.
Oh, I'll bet. This also, I got famously in one of the, I think it's the bar version of video game trivia that we did a few years ago. The answer to one of Jacob's questions was cell damage. I only know about cell damage, even though it was multi-platform, because of the Xbox version, because it came out there first and came to the other platforms later. A game that's so goddamn bizarre. But again, I know because of this console.
Chronicles of Riddick had an Xbox adaptation, Escape from Butcher Bay.
Yep.
Naturally, Vin Diesel was part of the development. Like, yet again, you want to get a nerd in there, you got Vin Diesel.
Constantine, also on Xbox, as well as PlayStation 2 and Windows. I never played. Always curious about. You look at licensed games at a certain era and you're like, oh, they're probably all terrible. But in this era, they weren't. Like, there were some gems in there and you didn't know till you tried.
Unpredictable, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I have a fun game. Listen to the Wii U one of this podcast, and Jacob went through the NPD best-selling games. And I want to go through the top 7 just to make it a little more interesting, because there's a big game we haven't talked about yet that is on this list. But NPD list best 7 selling games on the original Xbox. You could probably guess most of these with no problem.
Halo 2.
Go back and forth. Halo 2 is number 1.
Yeah, of course. With a bullet, without a doubt.
How many steel books did you own?
At least one.
Yeah,
definitely
same.
had that. You want to give me a guess on 2 through 7?
Is Midnight Club in there at all?
Not in the top 7.
Okay. Oh, Burnout 3 Takedown.
No, not in the top 7. Very good game, though. Very good.
Very good game.
I'm trying to think of which GTA game to guess, but I feel like a Grand Theft Auto is up there.
I'll give it to you. There's technically the double pack was the top. It was
3
number
in Vice
4.
City?
Yeah, it was 3 in Vice City. That's number 4 best-selling game.
That makes sense.
I'm going to go ahead and give you this one to you as well. Halo 1 is number 2
Yeah,
on the
obviously.
list.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So that means we have 3, 5, 6, and 7.
Doom 3.
And 3 is the one that's interesting for me. What was that?
Doom 3?
No, not Doom 3.
Damn.
We've talked about 5, 6, and 7 already.
Knights
Oh.
of the Old Republic.
Knights of the Old Republic is number 7.
Yeah, I figured it would be 7.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, one that we haven't talked about. I think it's this one, and this was an Xbox exclusive because it's why I've still only played 2 and 3. Fable.
Fable is number 3, and Fable is the thing we have not talked about. So really quickly, Splinter Cell 1 was number 5. Dead or Alive 3 was number 6.
It was either Dead or Alive 3 or Ninja Gaiden. It was one of them.
Ninja Gaiden's number 9. Counter-Strike number 8. Just really fun. But yes, Fable being at number 3 is one we have not talked about, which is getting a reboot this year. So I thought that'd be interesting to talk about.
I very briefly mentioned it at the beginning in my memories, where most of my memories of Fable is my freshman year of college. My roommate at the time had his Xbox and he played so much Fable. So he'd just be like goofing off and like trying to open up all of the face doors while we're all just like hanging out or jamming or whatever else. And so like Fable is a weird disjointed thing for me.
Yeah, Fable is one of those games that like I got into the franchise because again, remember I didn't own an Xbox, but I owned a 360, and so 2 and 3 are I'm very fond of those games. I played them at launch, and so I'm excited for this Fable reboot that's coming. I hope it's good. Peter Molyneux is basically not involved, so it has a better chance of being good. But the original Fable, I remember my friends Brian and Joe, who I mentioned earlier, like the 3 of us just sat together on Brian's bed in his room and played this game. We just handed off the controller and just played. And like, I remember, I can't remember if it was the first game or the second game where you can kick a chicken early on and then everyone just starts calling you chicken
That starts in 1. Yeah.
I've always liked 3D action games. I've always been a big fan. But there's something that felt special about Fable. Some of it was the promises that Peter made, that most of which were not in it. But like, there's something about being able to customize your hero, and then you're that hero. You make the legacy. There's no, like, you make the story. It's something they would do in later games on the other consoles, like Crackdown 1 on 360 also had a similar vibe. You make a hero, you can design him how you want. This felt like the earliest era of console games giving you the freedom that you had experienced often on PC RPGs, where you could create this character and go out into this world. Between this and Knights of the Old Republic, both in the top 7, like, they really let you just live this fantasy of stepping into these characters, which again existed before this, but I feel like it was this era and this generation where it really became prominent and would only build on in the generation after.
Fable was definitely my first experience with the amount of a promise not living up to the release.
Yeah, that too.
I'd had, disappointments here and there, graphics on the box versus graphics in the game, things like that. But I remember reading the articles about the upcoming Fable and about, that idea of you can plant the acorn and come back to the oak tree. The scope and ideas going on here, very intoxicating. We were all taken in. We all wanted it. And Fable had plenty of consequence. And this certainly was around the time when a lot of consequence like that was coming through in role-playing games and other genres as well. But Fable definitely was trying to set itself up as the true big interactive lifelike fantasy experience. And it was a good game. It was a fun game. It was a very fun game. It was not what we were promised.
No.
Intention and scope should be taken into account as far as context and how these games are remembered. And so it is a fun game. I should do a Fable playthrough. That'd be a good time. But it was the first time I remember that sense of like, wow, think of the possibilities. Game comes out. I'm going to still be thinking about those possibilities because they sure aren't here.
Yeah, without a doubt. Fun fact also about Fable. Frankie and I, obviously playing through Dragon Age series on Reignite, finished Mass Effect. In theory, we're getting another Mass Effect game, but one of the other franchises we've toyed with the idea of doing for the podcast, which is all about personalized characters and choice, is the Fable series. Because we both really loved 2 and 3 as well, and I'd be interested to return to the first game and see how disappointing it is without those expectations. This is something, Jen, you and I have talked about a great deal. One of the reasons I vowed, promised to go back to Chrono Cross is because I played Chrono Cross originally with the expectations of Chrono Trigger, which meant it was never going to be good enough. And boy, wasn't it. But now, as someone who's played a lot of other RPGs, I feel like I owe it to that game to give it another shot. And I think games like Fable that had these massive promises, returning to them without the weight of that, you can find that you enjoy them. I've gone back and played other old games that were panned that I went, oh, these are perfectly fine. I don't understand. I think Fable, there's room for that too. Adam, did you play Fable when it came out?
Yeah, I was definitely into Fable. I'm familiar with Peter Molyneux making promises because I'd played Black and White at that point. So
yeah, that's
true.
Yeah,
fair point.
Yeah,
very cool games. Very cool games.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it was nice to be like, things like BioWare had done, but getting to make choices and feeling like, oh, I could, because here's the thing, when I play RPGs, if I can go full evil, I will go full evil. So having the choice to like go on this adventure, have horns sprout because I'm such a little shit. I remember you had to like get a black rose to like romance the one evil lady. I don't know. It was great, as it wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
No.
But there's a charm to it. There's enough there to make it special and continue. I see why that series is coming back around because there's definitely a lot of potential. So they did some good stuff.
Well, I feel like it's a good way to describe the original Xbox. It ain't perfect, but it's got a charm to it.
Yeah, for sure. The thing that the Xbox did a lot also were games that were familiar genres done in a different way. I think of Gauntlet Dark Legacy, which was on Xbox, but also Hunter the Reckoning, which probably nobody has played, but was on GameCube and Xbox. And I remember a friend renting it, and it was a Gauntlet-style, almost isometric action game. It had single player and multiplayer, and I remember just wanting to play because it was basically like a Van Helsing-like kind of game. And there were tons of these too, these like hack and slash third-person games that were basically a dime a dozen, and yet a lot of them were fun because there was no IP bogging it down. It was a new thing and tried. This got, I think, a sequel, and then that was it. And then we never heard of Hunter again. But like, I feel like there were a lot of games like that this generation also, where it was like a one-off game. They tried something different and it worked, maybe got one sequel. I mean, you jokingly mentioned Blinks before, but like Blinks, it's the same deal. Like, first game did okay, got a sequel. Nobody talks about it now.
Nope.
because it just kind of lived and died with the Xbox.
Well, I mean, one that's an exclusive that my brother played a ton, and I can see why. I got to play it a little bit as well. Crimson Skies, High Road to Revenge, which was and remains an Xbox exclusive. It didn't end up on PC. It didn't any of that. Crimson Skies was a series that was on PC, but High Road to Revenge was the Xbox release. As somebody who has played entirely too much Star Fox 64, if there is such a thing, Crimson Skies just feels good.
Yeah.
As an arcade-style flight sim combat game, it was so cool. And that kind of like World War II dogfighting, I don't know. It just had so much charm to it because it also had that kind of like Rocketeer rockets and heavy cannons and like weird sci-fi weaponry. I think like a Tesla coil was part of it or something. Like it was like an electro cannon or something. It was nuts.
Yeah.
There's nothing cooler than a character who could potentially wear a bomber jacket with like fur on the collar.
Correct.
It's pretty dope.
Full stop. It's why people like Squall. I'm convinced that's the only reason.
The gunblade helps.
Yeah. But it's funny actually mentioning that, Jen, you reminded me of only sort of relatedly Gun Valkyrie, which was also an Xbox exclusive, another Sega game. It was published by Sega. It was developed by Smilebit. This third-person action shooter where you're like this mech woman with like a giant gun hand. It's a weird little game, but like I remember dumping a ton of time into it because it was just kind of wacky and weird and like had this cool design. Xbox to me is always the I'm so cool kind of vibe. Sometimes it was ironic and sometimes it wasn't.
It definitely was a big robot system.
Yes.
Big robot console. You had your Gun Valkyrie, you had your Steel Battalion, you had your Mech Assault, you had... Wasn't Metal Wolf Chaos an Xbox original?
Yep, I was gonna mention that. You should, every time you do a console retrospective, you should say, what games did From Software put out on this console exclusively? And Metal Wolf Chaos is absolutely a From Software game exclusive to the original. Well, until they did re-release later. But yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, it's basically, what if Metal Gear was only in the robots? Because it has, you literally play as the president of the United States who goes into a mech to fight the bad guys, and no one knows that the president is inside of the mech, even though it has the seal of the president of the United States on the mech.
Yes.
What if From Software shared a wall with Platinum Software and heard them making Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and went, we should make one of those.
Yeah.
And this is what they made in that game of telephone.
Yeah. It's always fun to figure out what was developed by studios you love previously. You know, it's why I always love to blow Pokemon fans' mind by telling them to go play Mendel Palace, a game that's now available on the Switch, or will be, which is very exciting to me because nobody's played that game and I love it. Also, I associate with the Xbox, although I played it on the PS2 as well, was the sequel to Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge. It was on PlayStation and Xbox. I don't think it was on GameCube. No, just PlayStation and Xbox. And it was this 3D action adventure game where you play as Jack and Oogie's come back and you have to stop him. It basically plays like a Devil May Cry game, which is wild. Because like I love the Devil May Cry series. I will never shut up about it. We'll eventually do a retrospective on it when they make another one, which I hope they make another one. But like, having already played 1 and 2 at this point, and maybe even 3 by the time this came out, this is 2004. I wonder when I'm going to look up when Devil May Cry 3 came out because I am curious. Dante's Awakening came out in 2005. So it was before. Yep. But I played 1 and 2 and loved that series. And I was like, oh, cool, a Nightmare Before Christmas game. I'll go buy that because I love the movie so much. And then got a Devil May Cry game out of it. Like, I couldn't have predicted that if like I had clairvoyance. And so like that will always have a special place in my heart too, because it was a pretty good game. Like, was it great? No, but it was fun.
So the game that I'm now remembering, putting a decent amount of time in on the Xbox, in that, you know, say of it what you will, was doing multiplayer missions with my brother and or my cousin playing Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
Yeah.
Those games are magnificent.
Two Towers and Return of the King are some of the best Gauntlet-like games I've ever played.
Yeah, they were better than the Gauntlet games that were coming out at the time, certainly.
True, yes.
And they had the truth of how OP Samwise Gamgee was.
Of course. Obviously.
Sam is best.
Sam is best. I love those games. I think Dave Jackson recently revisited one of them. I can't remember which. It might have been Return of the King for his podcast, and like was ecstatic that they held up. Like I haven't played them since they came out then, but like I remember especially with Return of the King playing as Gandalf the White and just decimating everything. And Gandalf is my favorite character, and so being able to play as Gandalf the White in that game, like yeah, and like they were just hack and slash gauntlet like isometric action games, but like they were so much fun, and they had the voice actors from the movies and like scenes from the film in the game, which wasn't a super regular thing still at the time. Yeah.
Right.
If we're going to talk about the Lord of the Rings games based on Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, we should also talk about the epic that was Peter Jackson's King Kong on the Xbox.
I've only ever played the 360 version. I have not played the original Xbox version
Yeah.
of that
I mean,
game.
it's similar, I think, as far as I know, because it came out like cross-gen basically at that point. What a ridiculously weird game. The fact that it also is Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, is the actual title.
The best title.
It's just the best title ever.
Yes, say the whole thing. Yes, every time.
Yeah, basically.
I love it. I also do want to point out that there was also games of telephone that would go on with certain games going back and forth as far as releases go. The first time Metal Gear Solid 2 came into my home was via the Xbox. My brother got a copy of Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance for the Xbox, which came out after Sons of Liberty, but before Substance came to PS2. So we got all of the extra VR missions. We got some Snake Tales. We got the skateboarding game in there. And I'm a little fuzzy on which versions have what as far as that goes. It wasn't a simultaneous release of Xbox and PS2. It was on Xbox exclusively for a little bit of time there and then came back onto the PS2. So even something that was originally meant for the PlayStation, built for, etc., had an Xbox exclusive. And there was an interesting bit of that where the previous generation with PS1, Sega Saturn, and N64, there was multi-platform releases, but there were such differences in media form that Saturn fell out of the race soon enough and had a different enough architecture, as we talked about in our retrospective about it, that there was still a little bit of exclusion, specific features, kind of things going on there. Whereas PlayStation 2, Xbox, this was the first time we kind of had sort of what it's become now, where, well, it's on both of them. There's some like subtle differences in how they run them, but they're intended to be the same thing. So it's funny to see those times where it's like, well, what's special on this version? Do you want to fight with Heihachi or with Spawn in your Soul Calibur 2?
Right.
The obvious answer is Link.
Yes, of course. I will be remiss if I don't mention also the Star Wars exclusive game for the Xbox that only recently came to other platforms, Republic Commando.
I thought you were going to mention Obi-Wan.
Oh, well, yeah, that one too. We don't talk about
Yeah.
Obi-Wan. But it was a tactical first-person shooter, and it was only on Xbox until later it got re-released on PS4 and the Switch. It's a third-person tactical shooter, squad-based, was fine, but like was very much like, this is our Star Wars game. And you were, I think, Clone Troopers in it because it was at the height of that part of it. Yeah, I forgot about Obi-Wan. That game is bad. Remember being so excited for it. I loved Obi-Wan Kenobi, especially Ewan McGregor's version of him. It is a bad and broken action game.
I blame Ewan McGregor for this,
Obviously, it has to be his fault.
obviously.
The list goes on of the unique and fun stuff and like cross-platform stuff, especially as we start to go towards the Xbox 360 era and the Xbox Live Arcade era. I think the Xbox will always remain to me as one of those weirdo consoles, like the first PlayStation, like the GameCube, that whole era, and even the PS2. Like, and we talked about this in our PS2 episode also. Like, so many bizarre games because people were just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what's stuck, and there was a ton of that on the Xbox too.
It had more than a few paradigm shifts going on in that generation. Sort of the fall of Sega as a console manufacturer, the rise of online gaming and PC-style gaming kind of crossing borders and boundaries, an entirely new company entering as a new challenger, and what deals are made and what kind of experiences are possible. And even the experiments of 3D gaming from the previous generation reaching new heights and depths as we felt so confident in ourselves as we developed for it. There's such fun, unique experiences and cool identity throughout this console generation, but Xbox is no exception to that.
So, before we wrap things up, as always, we should talk about what our top tier, our favorite game on the console was. And while I do tend to lean on multi-platform games, but they were the vibe of, I will this time pick an Xbox exclusive. And I think it's hard to pick anything for me but Halo 2. I wasn't really into shooters, fell in love with Halo. Halo 2, I think, is like one of the first midnight releases I remember going to. I may have either been working at GameStop at the time or just stopped working at GameStop, but like my GameStop was in a mall, and so we had to wait at the front entrance of the mall, and then someone from GameStop, their staff, from the entrance to the GameStop in the back of the mall to get the game and then escort us out. So it took a long time. We were listening to the soundtrack because we had gotten it early, like on a CD and a portable boombox. Because see, back then, kids, we didn't have MP3 players. They didn't exist yet. Like, it's one of the first times I really remember being excited about a game just because I wanted to play it with my friends. Like, all three of us were there. Me, Brian, and Joe were just waiting in line, hanging out, and like had nothing better to do. And so Halo 2 will always be the pinnacle of the Xbox One, the original Xbox experience. Can't say Xbox One like PS1.
No.
It just doesn't work. Thanks,
Xbox
Microsoft.
number one.
Xbox number one, exactly.
My God. You think like, oh, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, how original. At least we know what order it happened.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes practical works,
Yeah, agreed.
even if it's a little silly.
But what about you, Jen? Do you have a pillar game that really stands out to you from this era, from this console?
I mean, Sneak King really does tempt me, but that's not,
No,
It's
and
gotta be.
I associate that with the 360 anyway.
Well, it's the fact that the 360 version comes with the original Xbox version because, backwards and forwards compatible. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
But I'd have to say Psychonauts.
Yeah,
Again, this was one where I played Halo, I liked Halo, but a sense of identity, a game that I love and have replayed and continue to go back to and holds up in so many ways in terms of character, of even gameplay. It's not perfect, but god damn it, it's such an enjoyable experience that I can't help but go back to it, and it plays best on the original Xbox.
yeah. How about you, Adam?
I'm going to cheat.
Uh-oh.
Star Wars KOTOR,
Yeah,
just because
sure.
such a monumental game, you get an adorable RPG. You really have some pretty big decisions in that game, and it lets you. You feel you have your own Star Wars adventure, and you get to make your own decision, and that's great. Next will be Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, just because I adore Splinter Cell as a series, and I think Chaos Theory was definitely the best game at that time. Again, one of the best games ever made, and just because it got me to be a student athlete, NFL Fever 2002. Thank you very much. I appreciate. I mean, I literally have been obsessed with American football for 24 years because I played this video game with Peyton Manning on the cover. So shout out to them.
Fair enough.
Amazing.
Adam, thank you for joining us for this retrospective. Thank you for planting your flag 2 years ago. And
Yep.
I'm glad that we were able to finally do it. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about where they can find you online and your two awesome podcasts?
Well, thanks for having me. This was a ton of fun and just reminiscing about how old
How old
truly
we are?
am.
Yeah, how old we all
all-
are.
Everybody is. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, you can find me online. Just look for Adam Gumbert. That's across Blue Sky and YouTube. Two podcasts to do is Respawn Aim Fire, which is a weekly kind of variety show gaming podcast. A lot of fun, silly segments we make up over there every week, as well as talk about some news. And then the Tier List, a video game podcast, is the newer show that I do. Matt has been a guest on it before, where every season I have 6 people come on, talk about 6 games, and then we rank it on a tier list. And then the audience can vote. We have a vote, and we decide where definitively that game belongs on a tier list. Congratulations, Matt. Your game ended up being an S tier.
I brought Metroid Fusion, and I knew it would be because it's a perfect video game. It's not, but I think it is. In my heart, it's a perfect video game.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not the number 1 game on the list, but it did go into the S tier.
Look, I'll take it.
Take what you can get. But yes, again, thank you. And everyone check out that stuff if you'd like.
Do it.
Amazing. And at this point, we put it to you, listener. What were your experiences with the original Xbox? Were you gaming on Xbox Live way back when? Were you, in fact, communicating, downloading over 50 games, playing together as advertised on the 12-month subscription card you could get for it. I wonder if those are worth anything these days. I don't know. I don't care. Are you mad at us for not even mentioning Phantom Dust until this moment? Do you want to get at us about it? Then get at us about it. Tell us about your favorite games. Tell us about your experiences. Reach out to us. There's so many great ways to get in touch with us. We are Fun and Games Pod across all social media platforms that we are currently active upon, which as of this episode is Instagram, Blue Sky, and Tumblr. You can email us at funandgamespod@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought of this episode, what you thought of previous episodes, what you'd like us to talk about, and who you'd like us to talk with on future episodes. You can visit certainpov.com and find not only other fantastic Certain POV podcasts, but a permanent invite link to our Discord server, where a lot of these topics begin and these conversations continue. And maybe we'll have a few more Xbox titles showing up on the gaming log, and we'd love for you to show some of those as well. If you like what we do and want to help support us as we continue to develop what it is we're doing here, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/funandgamespod. There is a free tier. If you want to vote on what our next console retrospective is going to be, the only way to do it is on the Patreon, and you've got to be a patron to do it. And we are so grateful for all of our patrons, and we want to shout out those on the high scoreboard. Today, the high scoreboard is Alex Lavelle, Case Aiken, Daniel Nyden, Sean Bowen, Film It Yourself, Dave Jackson, Tales from the Backlog, Alejandro Alves, Curly Bright, and Crisco Pleen. Thank you so much for your support. Please enter your initials. Explanation. You will be entering your initials by making a shot to a target's knees at 120 kilometers with an R-Tech sniper rifle with a tri-light scope.
And when you're done with that, you should also go rate and review this podcast on your platform of choice. If you are looking for the best and freest way? Sure, we'll go with that. To help this podcast and all podcasts, honestly, go to where you listen and rate and review it. It helps us combat the mighty algorithm and help other folks find this incredible podcast. Yeah, I think our podcast is incredible. What of it? And join in the community and hang out with us. Please rate, review, even if you haven't yet. Even if it's on platforms you don't normally listen to, just go listen for a little while and then rate it there too. All of it helps.
And whether you have modded your Xbox beyond recognition, whether you are just a filthy meatbag and proud of it, or if this is your first episode of Fun and Games, thank you so much for being here. We couldn't do this without you. This is a conversation. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm Jen Moonen.
And I am Matt A.K. Stormageddon.
And happy gaming.
Welcome to No Small Games, the indie gaming recap and review podcast. I'm Kate, also known as Cater Blossom.
And I'm Emily. You might also know me online as The Specific Egg.
And we met streaming and playing video games on Twitch.
At No Small Games, we combine our favorite genres to experience everything the indie game world has to offer and share it with all of you. We believe there are no small games, only small game studios.
Each episode, we'll choose one indie game that we each played separately and discuss our playthrough experience together.
The good, the bad, and our most memorable moments. We'll follow our recap with a review and announcement of which indie game will be featured on our next episode.
We invite you to play each game along with us and would love to hear from you about your playthrough experience.
Hey, Kate.
Hey, Emily.
I hope that No Small Games brings everyone some big fun.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.